My father nearly choked on his champagne. It all started 6 years ago when I walked away from everything my family had mapped out for my future. They had always dismissed my interest in technology as a childish obsession, insisting that real success meant following in their footsteps in the pharmaceutical industry. Little did they know that tonight, as they sat at table 12 of the San Francisco Children's Hospital annual fundraising gala, they were about to discover just how much their disappointment had actually achieved. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my simple navy suit. Sometimes, the hardest networks to navigate are the ones you were born into. Growing up in Palo Alto, California, being a Wang meant legacy, tradition, and very specific expectations. My parents, Dr. Susan Wang and Dr. Michael Wang, had built their identities around medical excellence and pharmaceutical research. Our modern glass house overlooked Silicon Valley, hosting dinner parties where my mother would showcase us children like prized specimens. "Our future doctors," she'd announce proudly to colleagues from Stanford Medical Center. "The Wang children are destined for greatness," she'd tell fellow researchers at garden parties, my father nodding approvingly behind his wine glass. "David is already accepted to Johns Hopkins pre-med, and Kevin shows such promise in biochemistry. He'll make an excellent research scientist." When conversations inevitably turned to me, the youngest at 26 now, my mother's smile would tighten imperceptibly. "Ryan has technical interests. He'll find his path eventually." What she meant was that I was the family's question mark. While David excelled in organic chemistry and Kevin published research papers as an undergraduate, I spent countless hours in our garage, building computers from spare parts and teaching myself programming languages. Our housekeeper, Maria, a kind woman from Guatemala, was often the only person who showed interest in my projects. "You have the mind for this work," she'd say as I explained my latest creation, a home automation system I'd built at 14. "The way you see patterns, the way you solve problems, it's a gift." By 16, I was developing mobile apps that my classmates actually used. By 18, I had created a small social platform for our high school that gained surprising traction. The garage had become my laboratory, the place where I felt most authentic. Computer games, my father dismissed when I mentioned wanting to study computer science during my senior year. Wang family members heal people. They don't play with toys. To appease them, I enrolled at Stanford in their biomedical engineering program, a compromise that satisfied their medical aspirations while allowing me to maintain some connection to technology. But even there, I found ways to pursue my true passion, taking every computer science elective I could justify and spending nights coding in the computer lab instead of studying organic chemistry. I started a small tech consulting business from my dorm room, helping local businesses build their online presence. The money I earned went into a secret savings account, funding my real education, online courses in advanced programming, entrepreneurship workshops, and networking events in downtown San Francisco. My double life continued through college until my senior year, when everything changed. I was 6 months into preparing for the MCAT, a process that filled me with dread, when I attended a tech startup pitch competition in the city. After watching founders present their ideas, I impulsively submitted my own concept, a healthcare platform that would connect patients with specialists using advanced algorithms and telemedicine. The platform I'd been secretly developing combined my forced knowledge of medical systems with my natural programming abilities. To my amazement, I won second place and caught the attention of Sarah Mitchell, a venture capitalist with Highland Ventures, who had been searching for exactly this type of innovation. "This could revolutionize how people access specialized medical care," she told me after my presentation, "especially in underserved communities. Have you considered pursuing this full-time?" That conversation changed everything. 2 weeks later, I sat in our minimalist living room, explaining to my parents why I was dropping out of Stanford's biomedical program to launch a startup. The silence that followed was arctic. "This is absolutely unacceptable," my father finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. "We've invested everything in your education, your future in medicine." "Everything except respect for what I actually want to build," I countered. My mother's expression hardened. "If you pursue this hobby, you do it without our support, financial or otherwise." David, home from his residency at Johns Hopkins, laughed coldly. "Always the rebel. Let's see how long you last trying to compete with real tech companies." Kevin, already working at a prestigious biotech firm, simply looked embarrassed. "Mom, Dad, maybe we should hear him out." But the damage was done. I left that night with nothing but my laptop, my savings, and a burning determination to prove them wrong. The next 6 years tested every limit I thought I had, working 18-hour days from a cramped studio apartment in Oakland, surviving on ramen and coffee, maxing out credit cards to keep my servers running. But under Sarah's mentorship and with the small seed funding from Highland Ventures, I thrived. Health Connect launched quietly 2 years after I dropped out. The platform used machine learning to match patients with appropriate specialists based on symptoms, location, and insurance coverage, while providing secure video consultations for initial assessments. What started as my dorm room idea grew into something that actually helped people. The breakthrough came when Dr. Jennifer Rodriguez, an emergency room physician at UCSF, started recommending Health Connect to patients who couldn't get timely specialist appointments. Word spread through medical networks organically. Within 6 months, we had processed over 10,000 patient matches. Then came the partnerships, first with regional hospitals, then insurance companies, finally with major health systems across California. Last year, we expanded nationally. What had started as a garage project now employed over 200 people and served millions of patients annually. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd ended up in healthcare after all, just not in the way my parents had envisioned. Throughout this journey, I maintained careful distance from my family. Occasional awkward phone calls with my mother, holiday cards, but nothing substantial. They knew I was doing something with computers, but I deliberately kept the details vague. I wanted success on my own terms, not as a way to finally earn their approval. So when the elegant invitation to tonight's charity gala arrived at my apartment, I was surprised. Even more shocking was that it was addressed to me personally, not just Ryan Wang and guest. Someone had specifically wanted me here. After days of internal debate, I decided to attend, not to seek validation, but perhaps to finally close this chapter of family tension. 6 years of building something meaningful had given me perspective. I was confident enough in my achievements now to face them without crumbling under their judgment. What I hadn't anticipated was walking into a situation where I'd have to watch my family dismiss everything I'd built, not knowing they were criticizing the work of the evening's keynote speaker. The iconic Fairmont San Francisco ballroom hummed with the energy of Silicon Valley's elite gathering for philanthropy. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a well-tailored navy suit that was actually Tom Ford, paired with a simple watch that happened to be a vintage Rolex. Understated elegance that my status-conscious family would likely interpret as me trying too hard with limited means. From the entrance, I could see them at their assigned table. My parents looked distinguished in their formal wear, my father examining the wine list with practiced authority. David was there with his wife Jennifer, both still radiating the confident superiority of successful physicians. Kevin sat beside his girlfriend Lisa, a fellow researcher, both looking slightly uncomfortable in the overtly social setting. "Good evening, sir," the hostess approached with a warm smile. "Are you here for the Wang party?" "Yes, thank you," I replied, noting her confusion as she checked her list. "I show them at table 12, but," she paused, checking her tablet again. "Are you perhaps Mr. Ryan Chen from Health Connect? Because you're listed as tonight's keynote speaker at the VIP table." "That's correct," I said quietly, "but I'll be joining the Wang table first, if that's possible." Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Of course, Mr. Chen. Should I inform the event coordinator of any changes to the evening's schedule?" "Not yet," I assured her. "I'll let you know." As I approached table 12, my mother spotted me first, her eyes performing the familiar head-to-toe assessment I remembered from childhood, the quick calculation of my appearance's approximate value, inevitably finding it insufficient. "Ryan," she said, rising to offer the obligatory air kiss greeting, "you actually came. We weren't sure you'd make it." "I said I would be here," I replied, checking my watch. 7:30, exactly on time. My father stood, offering a stiff handshake that ended with an awkward pat on my shoulder. "You look well," he offered, which in Wang family code meant I hadn't achieved their preferred aesthetic of medical professional success. David barely looked up from his phone. "This is my wife Jennifer," he said with perfunctory politeness. Jennifer offered a polite smile, clearly briefed on the family's difficult youngest member. Kevin gave me a more genuine greeting, though Lisa seemed nervous about something. "Thanks for coming, Ryan. I know this isn't really your scene." "Charity events?" I asked. "I attend quite a few, actually." "Really?" My mother's voice carried a note of surprise. "How interesting." What she meant was, how could someone in my presumed circumstances afford to attend events like this? As I took the empty seat at their table, I noticed the evening's program beside each place setting. My photograph smiled back from the cover, with the headline, "Keynote Speaker, Ryan Chen, CEO and Founder, Health Connect." I casually moved a menu to cover it. "So," David began, not looking up from his phone, "Mom said you're still doing the computer thing. How's that working out?" "It's going well," I answered simply. Kevin, perhaps trying to be supportive, added, "Technology is definitely important in healthcare these days. Lots of opportunities for support roles." "Support roles," I bit back a smile. "The wine list here is impressive," my father announced, clearly hoping to steer conversation towards safer territory. "They have that Opus 1 we had at the medical conference last year." "Expensive taste," I observed. "Quality has its price," he replied, signaling for the sommelier. "Success means being able to appreciate the finer things." As we waited for our wine, my mother launched into her favorite topic, other people's children's achievements. "The Morrisons' youngest just finished her cardiac surgery fellowship," she began. "Already has offers from 3 major hospitals. And the Chen family's son, different Chen family, obviously, just published his research in the New England Journal of Medicine." How wonderful for them, I said, genuinely meaning it. It makes one wonder, David interjected, finally putting down his phone, what you might have accomplished if you'd stuck with the medical track. Before I could respond, the sommelier approached with their wine selection. As he poured, I noticed him glance at me twice, clearly recognizing me, but uncertain why I was sitting at this table instead of the VIP section. Excellent choice, the sommelier said to my father. This vintage pairs beautifully with the evening's menu. Will Mr. Chen be joining you for the full dinner service? My family looked confused. My father frowned. I'm Mr. Wang. This is my family. We don't know any Mr. Chen. The sommelier's eyes widened as he realized his mistake. My apologies, sir. I thought. He glanced at me uncertainly. No worries, I said smoothly. Easy mistake. As he departed, David smirked. Wrong table entirely. Probably looking for some tech executive. They all look the same to service staff. Speaking of tech executives, Kevin said, did you see that young CEO on the cover of the program? Can't be much older than Ryan. Built some kind of medical technology company. My mother picked up her program, studying the cover. Ryan Chen. Interesting that he shares your first name, Ryan, though Chen is certainly a more distinguished family name in business circles. I replied noncommittally. Health Connect, my father read aloud. Claims to be revolutionizing patient care through technology. Probably just another app that will disappear in a few years. Actually, Jennifer interjected, we've been using Health Connect at Johns Hopkins. It's incredibly sophisticated. The diagnostic algorithms are more accurate than most human preliminary assessments. David waved dismissively. Technology can assist medicine, but it can't replace real expertise. These tech people don't understand the complexity of actual patient care. I took a sip of wine, noting its excellent quality. What if the technology was developed by someone who understood both medicine and programming? Impossible, my father declared. Real medical expertise takes decades to develop. These tech entrepreneurs are just kids playing with data they don't comprehend. As if summoned by our conversation, the event coordinator approached our table with practiced grace. Elena Vasquez, according to her name tag, wore the confident smile of someone managing a flawless evening. Excuse me, she said, addressing the table generally. I'm looking for Mr. Ryan Chen. We have a slight scheduling question about the keynote presentation. The table fell silent. 6 pairs of eyes turned to me expectantly, waiting for me to explain that she had the wrong person. What kind of scheduling question? I asked instead. Elena's smile brightened. Mr. Chen, I didn't recognize you here. Would you prefer to give your speech before or after the dinner service? And should we adjust the lighting for your presentation slides? The silence that followed was absolute. My family stared at me, then at Elena, then back at me, expressions cycling through confusion, disbelief, and the slow dawning of understanding. Let's stick with the original plan, I said calmly. After dinner, standard presentation lighting. Perfect, Elena replied. And should we prepare the VIP green room for your pre-speech meeting with the hospital board members? Yes, thank you. I'll be there in about 20 minutes. As Elena departed, I finally looked directly at my family. Their expressions ranged from shock to bewilderment to what might have been recognition. What, my mother finally managed, just happened? I took a deep breath. The moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for over 6 years had arrived. I'm Ryan Chen, I said simply. Health Connect is my company. The silence stretched endlessly. David was the first to recover, his medical training helping him process impossible information. Your company, he repeated slowly. You mean you work there? No, I clarified, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I founded Health Connect. I'm the CEO and majority owner. That's impossible, my father said automatically. You dropped out of college 6 years ago to pursue some computer hobby. I dropped out to build Health Connect, I corrected. The company that Jennifer just praised for its sophisticated diagnostic algorithms. Jennifer was staring at me as though I'd suddenly started speaking in tongues. But you said you were doing something with computers. You were vague about everything. Because I wanted to see how you'd treat me if you thought I was struggling, I explained. Tonight has made that abundantly clear. My mother's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace, her go-to gesture when socially destabilized. Darling, why wouldn't you tell us about this? Achievement. The way she emphasized achievement spoke volumes. Success made my choices retroactively acceptable in a way passion alone never could. Would you like the full story? I asked, looking around the table. Without waiting for an answer, I continued. After I left 6 years ago, I moved to Oakland with $3,000 in savings. I lived in a studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and a desk made from a door and 2 filing cabinets. For the first year, I coded 18 hours a day, living on instant noodles and coffee, building the initial platform. I paused, noting their uncomfortable expressions. Sarah Mitchell from Highland Ventures became my first investor after seeing my prototype. She believed in the vision when nobody else would. Health Connect officially launched 3 years ago. Kevin was watching me with what appeared to be genuine amazement. But the resources required, the medical data, the regulatory compliance. I spent 2 years navigating FDA regulations, I continued. Learning HIPAA compliance, building relationships with medical institutions. That biomedical engineering background you forced me into actually helped, though not in the way you intended. My father was struggling to process this information. But the scale, a platform that Jennifer says they're using at Johns Hopkins, that requires millions in funding. 47 million across 3 funding rounds, I confirmed. Our Series C closed last month, valuing the company at $230 million. David's jaw actually dropped. 230 million? Current valuation, yes. We're profitable, growing at 30% quarterly and actively considering an IPO next year. The table fell silent again as they absorbed this information. Around us, the gala continued, other families enjoying their evening, while mine struggled to reconcile 6 years of assumptions with this new reality. But why? My mother asked, her voice small. Why keep this secret? We're your family. We would have been proud. I couldn't help the sharp laugh that escaped. Would you have been? The same family who called my interests computer games and hobbies? Who cut me off completely when I chose to pursue what I loved? Now, Ryan, my father interjected, that's unfair. We were concerned about your stability, your future. You were concerned about your image, I corrected. If you'd known about my business acumen, would that have made my passion more valid to you? Before anyone could answer, Dr. Mao, Patricia Williams, the hospital's chief of staff, approached our table. Ryan, she exclaimed warmly, I wanted to thank you again for Health Connect's partnership with our pediatric department. The remote monitoring system you developed has been revolutionary for our young patients. She turned to my family with obvious pride. You must be so proud of Ryan's work. Health Connect has helped us reduce emergency readmissions by 40% while improving patient satisfaction scores dramatically. My parents managed polite smiles while looking completely bewildered. Dr. Williams continued, oblivious to the family drama unfolding. The donation Ryan arranged for tonight's auction, the full implementation of Health Connect's platform for 3 rural clinics, will literally save lives. It's the most significant contribution we've received. As she departed, Kevin stared at me. You donated medical software implementation? That must be worth about $2 million in services and equipment, I confirmed. Rural healthcare access is one of our key initiatives. 2 million, my mother repeated faintly. David leaned forward, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by what looked like professional interest. Ryan, I had no idea. At Johns Hopkins, we've been amazed by the platform's diagnostic accuracy. The machine learning algorithms are incredibly sophisticated. Thank you, I said. That validation from institutions like Hopkins means everything to us. But how did you develop the medical expertise? Jennifer asked. The platform shows deep understanding of clinical workflows and diagnostic processes. I spent 3 years shadowing physicians, attending medical conferences, and consulting with specialists across dozens of disciplines, I explained. I wanted to build something that actually improved patient care, not just disrupted existing systems for the sake of disruption. My father was studying me as though seeing me for the first time. The regulatory approvals alone must have taken years. 2.5 years with the FDA, I confirmed. Worth every month to ensure patient safety and data security. As our conversation continued, I watched my family's expressions shift from disbelief to growing respect. But underneath my professional satisfaction, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also sadness that their approval came only after external validation of my success. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator's voice came over the sound system. If I could have your attention. In 15 minutes, we'll be hearing from this evening's keynote speaker, Ryan Chen, CEO and founder of Health Connect. My family turned to stare at me again as applause rippled through the ballroom. That's you, Kevin said unnecessarily. Yes, I replied, standing from the table. I should prepare for the presentation. Wait, my mother called. Ryan, we need to talk about this. Really talk. I looked at her, seeing not the intimidating figure of my childhood, but a woman struggling to reconcile her long-held assumptions with an unexpected reality. After the speech, I promised. Right now, I have several hundred people waiting to hear about improving healthcare access through technology. As I walked toward the VIP area, I heard David say to the table, do you realize we've been sitting with one of the most successful healthcare entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley? Our little brother, Kevin added, wonder in his voice. Behind the stage, Elena briefed me on the evening's logistics while I checked my presentation slides one final time. The speech I'd prepared focused on Health Connect's mission and the importance of technology in democratizing healthcare access. Looking out at the audience through a gap in the curtains, I could see my family at table 12, still appearing shell-shocked. Mr. Chen? Elena touched my shoulder. Are you ready? I straightened my jacket and nodded. Let's do this. As I walked onto the stage to warm applause, I caught sight of my parents in the audience. For the first time in 6 years, they were looking at me with something approaching pride. But more importantly, I realized that their approval, while nice to have, was no longer necessary for my own sense of worth. I'd built something meaningful that helped people. I'd proven to myself that following my passion could lead to both personal fulfillment and professional success. Whether my family understood that journey was secondary to the fact that I'd taken it. "Good evening," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. 6 years ago, I was a college dropout with an idea that technology could make healthcare more accessible, more efficient, and more human. Tonight, I want to share how that idea became Health Connect, and why I believe we're just getting started in revolutionizing how people access medical care. As I launched into my presentation, I felt the familiar confidence that came from discussing work I was passionate about. In the audience, I could see my father leaning forward with genuine interest, my mother taking notes, and David recording my speech on his phone. The presentation went well, earning a standing ovation and several questions from audience members. As I concluded, I realized that this moment represented more than just professional recognition. It was the completion of a circle I'd begun 6 years ago when I chose to pursue my own path despite family opposition. Walking off the stage, I was intercepted by several investors interested in Health Connect's expansion plans, medical professionals wanting to discuss partnerships, and journalists requesting interviews. The networking portion of the evening kept me busy for another hour, but I kept glancing toward table 12, where my family remained, clearly waiting for me to return. Finally, as the formal portion of the evening wound down, I made my way back to their table. They all looked up as I approached, expressions more complex than simple pride or embarrassment. "That was incredible," Jennifer said immediately. "The impact statistics you shared, the patient stories. Ryan, what you've built is truly remarkable." "Thank you," I said, taking my seat. "That means a lot coming from someone who sees the healthcare system from the inside." My father cleared his throat. "Son, I owe you an apology. We all do. What you've accomplished, it's extraordinary." "It's what I've always wanted to build," I replied. "The only difference now is that it comes with external validation you can recognize." My mother reached across the table to touch my hand. "We failed you, Ryan. We should have supported your dreams regardless of whether we understood them." For a moment, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I appreciate that, Mom, but I also needed to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own terms." "Where do we go from here?" Kevin asked. "Because I'd like to understand your work better. Maybe visit your offices sometime?" I looked around the table at their expectant faces. Despite everything, these people were my family. The hurt they'd caused was real, but so was our shared history. "I'd like that," I said honestly. "But I need you to understand that this isn't me seeking your approval anymore. I'm successful, I'm fulfilled, and I'm making a difference in the world. If we're going to rebuild our relationship, it needs to be based on mutual respect, not on your finally accepting my choices." "Of course," my father said quickly. "We understand completely." "Do you?" I asked. "Because 6 years ago, you told me I'd never amount to anything without your connections. Tonight, you've seen what I built without them. I need to know that you respect not just my success, but my right to have chosen this path, even if it had failed." The table fell quiet as they absorbed this challenge. "You're right," David said finally. "We judged your choices based on our own narrow definition of success. That was wrong, regardless of how things turned out." "I've always been proud of you," Kevin added. "I just didn't know how to show it when you chose something so different from what we expected." My mother nodded, tears in her eyes. "We love you, Ryan. Success or failure, we should have supported you. Can you forgive us?" I felt a weight I'd carried for 6 years beginning to lift. "I already have, Mom, but forgiveness is different from forgetting. Moving forward, I need you to trust that I know what's best for my life." "What about Health Connect's future?" my father asked, his curiosity genuine. "The healthcare industry is so complex, so regulated." I smiled, appreciating his interest. "We're expanding internationally next year, opening offices in London and Toronto to bring the platform to other healthcare systems, and we're developing specialized modules for mental health services and chronic disease management." "That's incredible," Jennifer said. "The potential impact on global health outcomes." As we continued talking, I realized that this conversation represented the family relationship I'd always wanted, but never thought possible. Not based on meeting their expectations, but on mutual respect for each other's choices and achievements. The evening ended with plans for dinner the following weekend, at a restaurant of my choosing this time, and genuine expressions of interest in learning more about my work. As we prepared to leave, my mother pulled me aside. "Ryan," she said quietly, "I know I can't undo 6 years of disappointment and missed opportunities, but I want you to know that watching you speak tonight, seeing what you've built, I've never been more proud to be your mother." "Thank you, Mom," I replied, meaning it. "That means more to me than you know." As I drove home through the San Francisco night, I reflected on how dramatically the evening had changed everything between us. Not through my seeking their approval, but through their recognition that approval had never been theirs to give or withhold. I'd built Health Connect not to prove them wrong, but because I believed technology could make healthcare better for everyone. The success that followed was simply a byproduct of following my passion with discipline and determination. The relationship with my family was evolving into something I couldn't have predicted 6 years ago. Not the unconditional embrace I might have once craved, but something potentially more valuable. A genuine connection between adults who respected each other's choices and achievements. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Would love to set up a meeting between Health Connect and Johns Hopkins leadership. I think we could explore some exciting partnerships. I smiled, typing back, I'd welcome that conversation. Let's discuss it over dinner next week. For the first time in 6 years, I was looking forward to a family gathering, not because I needed their validation, but because I was finally free to enjoy their company without the weight of unmet expectations. The most important lesson of the evening wasn't that my family had finally accepted my choices, but that I'd reached a point where their acceptance, while meaningful, was no longer necessary for my happiness or self-worth. I'd chosen passion over expectation, authenticity over approval, and built something that made a real difference in the world. Whether my family understood that journey was less important than the fact that I'd had the courage to take it. As I pulled into my apartment building's garage, I felt a profound sense of completion. The boy who'd been told he'd never amount to anything without his family's connections had become a man who'd created his own path to success. Tomorrow would bring new challenges at Health Connect, but tonight, I was simply grateful for the journey that had brought me here. The notification light on my phone was blinking with messages from reporters, investors, and medical professionals who'd attended the gala. But the message I treasured most was from Maria, our former housekeeper, who'd somehow heard about my speech. Mijo, I always knew you had the gift. Congratulations on showing the world what I saw in that garage all those years ago. Some validation, I realized, comes from the people who believed in you before you believed in yourself. The rest is just noise.